Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Injury Law Pod. I am your host, Eric Bartlett, 29-year personal injury lawyer, and this is the podcast where we talk about all things personal injury law related. And last week, we started off the new year by covering 5 things that you need to be thinking about to be prepared just in the event you face some personal injury in your future. And again, if you didn't catch that at the end, we will pop a video link up here in the screen and you can click on that and make sure you've taken the appropriate steps to protect yourself. But following up on that, today we're going to talk about the first 30 days after a serious injury, what to do, what not to do, and why it matters. So you have to think about it like this. Most people think cases are decided by juries or settlements, but the foundation is poured early. By the time lawyers get involved later, we're often just cleaning up damage. We're trying to take a situation where a client not knowing what they should or shouldn't have been doing, and now we're trying to put the pieces together and make the best presentable claim for them to get them compensated. However, the insurance company, they start building their case immediately because obviously you're reaching out to them to establish a claim. And so while you're in pain or confused or whatever it is, they're on the move, they're taking action. And if you're not, it's going to affect your claim in the end. Every decision in the first month shows up later in the claim file. I want you to keep that in mind. This isn't about being aggressive, it's about not accidentally hurting yourself further in the claims process. You're already hurt out of this accident, but now you're trying not to hurt your claim. So let's walk through exactly what it looks like in those first 30 days and what happens and what should happen and what shouldn't happen. So, what should you do immediately after an injury? This may seem like common sense, but unfortunately, it doesn't always happen. And that is medical care. Medical care comes, and here's the thing, a lot of people, they're hurt in an accident, but for whatever reason, they decide to wait it out. They decide they're going to see how things progress. Is this really as bad as they think it is? Whatever their thoughts are. Maybe they don't have health insurance. They're worried about incurring medical bills. Whatever the reason is, people sometimes wait to get medically checked out, and it's a big mistake. Listen, getting checked isn't about exaggeration. Okay. You're not trying to build your case, it's about documentation. And whether you go to the emergency room, or maybe you just go to an urgent care or your primary care doctor, right? There's different levels that are involved. One of those options needs to be in your thinking if you've been hurt in an accident. You've got to make sure when you get to one of these places, and again, depending on the level that you're experiencing pain or you're concerned about injury, you may go to the emergency room, or you may go to an urgent care, or you may go to your regular doctor if you have one. But whatever that looks like, when you go there, you have to tell them how the injury happened, what parts of your body were affected, and what pain you're having, and if there's new pain versus any old issues. Make sure you're talking about that difference, because you've got to understand that whatever you're telling those medical providers most likely is going to go into a medical record. And so it's going to be critical when people are looking back to figure out what your complaints were, what you said happened, those types of things. So if you think a body part is injured, if you're experiencing pain somewhere, you should mention it early and often. That is the best way to proceed when you're going about your medical care. Okay, so again, if we're looking at, say, day 1 to day 3 after an accident, medical care is right there. From day 1, that's where you should be if you believe you've been hurt. Number 2, you need to make sure you get evidence while it's fresh. So, what do I mean by that? Photos of your injury, same day and as the days go on, especially if there's bruising that develops, maybe from a seat belt, from an airbag. Again, if you've been cut, we have situations where people are either attacked by a dog or they sustain some kind of cuts, things like that. And going from day 1 and then following it to the progression of scarring, it's really important to show that. And also, if it's a car accident, making sure you're getting pictures of the vehicles involved. If you can get both vehicles, that's always helpful. Sometimes it might just be your vehicle you're getting pictures of, but either way, that's awesome. Making sure also, if for any reason you can get video, again, of the vehicles, the scene, any of this stuff could become very critical down the road. And the other thing to keep in mind, like we've talked a bunch of times, is having a dash cam in your car. If you captured this accident with your dash cam, make sure you've got that video, you've got it backed up, you can find it later. The other thing is keeping damaged items is important. That might be a motorcycle helmet, it could be your shoes, it could be car seats, it could be your phone, it could be your glasses. Lots of things get damaged in car accidents, and keeping a hold of those just to show the magnitude of the impact is always very important. Plus, it can also be part of the claim. If you have damages, property damages like that, you can make a claim for those as well. And then here's the other key point: write down the details, what you remember before your memory fades. Because as time goes on, as things can get cloudy, you might not remember it like you did initially. And making some notes to yourself is not a bad idea. Okay. So keep those things in mind. Now, here's what you don't want to do, right? You don't want to minimize your pain. And that's what I talked about earlier. Thinking, I'm fine, we'll see how this develops, that kind of thing. No, if you think you're hurt out of an accident, don't minimize it. Because again, getting care early on is always the better option. Number one, you're going to be seen by medical professionals that may be able to help you recover sooner. And number two, it doesn't allow the insurance company to play games with, why did you wait? Why was there a week-long gap? Things like that. You're better off getting seen day 1, day 2, having a record. Then, if you want to wait and see how things progress, you've already established that you were hurt. And now you can explain, I wanted to see how this developed before going and getting more medical care. Then also, don't assume police reports are perfect, because a lot of times we see errors in police reports. And so, you're going to want to get the police report, you're going to want to look it over. And if for some reason you don't agree with that, you definitely want to try to make contact with the police officer and address any errors that you think are there. Now, again, this is also a good time to think about, do I need a lawyer involved? Because if something about the police report doesn't add up, you may need help above and beyond what you're going to be able to get accomplished. So keep all those things in mind. And remember this: if you're talking to the other driver's insurance company, do not guess and do not apologize. Okay, that's very important. If they're asking you about times and distances and things of that nature and how the accident unfolded, unless you know for a fact how fast that other car was driving or how far you were from that car when you first saw them, how many seconds went by before the collision. Again, if you didn't have a stopwatch, you haven't done measurements, you weren't looking at the other person's speedometer, which obviously you can't do. You don't know these things. So it's a guess, and a guess can hurt you. So keep that in mind. But remember this as a takeaway: you don't get extra credit for being tough, but you do pay a price for being vague. And so, again, you want to make sure you're not going into a medical provider and telling them, yeah, I'm fine. Overall, I got a little soreness. That's going to get written down, right? I'm fine. And so, again, you don't get extra credit for being tough. So, this is the time to lay it out. If you're hurting, you need to tell medical professionals what the problem is. All right. So, then we're moving to like days 4 through 10. Okay, we're moving to the steps that we need to think about in that time period. Now, again, the insurance company, their wheels are already spinning. And what you may not realize is claims are assigned fast. So whether the at-fault driver notifies his insurance or you notify his insurance, as soon as that claim is established, things are going to get into motion on the insurance company's side. Coverage investigations are going to begin immediately. Adjusters are trained to lock in statements early. Oh, they always want a recorded statement from you. Is that a legal requirement? Are you legally required to give an insurance company a statement? No, you are not. And if we get involved early enough, what we tell insurance people is, number one, look at the police report. If we've seen the police report, it gives a really nice breakdown. There's witnesses, things like that. Then we say, here it is. You don't need to talk to our person. If there's confusion, if it's a difficult situation, maybe it's a fall at a place, right? And there was no video that captured it, maybe no witnesses, whatever it looks like, then, it's going to be helpful for the insurance company to hear from our client. But guess what? We're going to be on the phone and it's not going to be recorded, because when they record a statement, it's now locked in. And if this thing goes down to a lawsuit someday, they're going to have that recorded statement transcript, and they're going to be looking for any inconsistencies that can paint you as a liar, even if it's just because you have a different memory at this point. Like I talked about earlier, right? Making notes, because memories can change and fade and things like that. So you just do not want to give them a recorded statement, because it just gives them another bite at the apple. So remember, it's a big red flag, the recorded statement. Again, they're going to tell you it's just routine. This is what we get from everybody. They're going to make it sound like it just has to be that. It just has to be that way. It does not. I'm telling you right now. You can absolutely refuse to give a recorded statement. And the other thing is, these recorded statements sometimes can conflict not only with deposition testimony, but medical records. Because again, you might say something early on, a medical record gets produced, it says something slightly different. Again, insurance is going to jump on that to use it against you. And silence or delay gets used against claimants all the time. So what are some of the early mistakes I see? This 4 to 10 day window that I see just all the time. People signing medical authorizations to insurance companies without understanding what they're signing. If you signed a medical authorization for an insurance company, they can get your medical records from anywhere and for as far back as they want. And that's a big no-no. Because if you're claiming your right arm was hurt, why do they need to see everything else that's been going on with you for the last year, 2 years, 5 years, whatever that looks like? So you don't want to sign anything for them. That's a big red flag. Also, accepting small payments that later reduce recovery. Now, there's a couple parts to this. Some of these insurance companies now are offering these quick settlements. I've talked about them in the past. Hey, we'll give you $1,500, close it out. This is 4 days after the accident, maybe a week. And you don't even know exactly how injured you are, what the future looks like. What upside is there to accepting some small offer right out of the gate? There's a huge upside for the insurance company, of course. They're getting you off the books because once you settle, you're done. There's no going back to them. So they're out and they just maybe caught a huge break. But for you, there's absolutely no upside. And unfortunately, we get those calls where people tell me, I don't think I settled anything. They offered me this. And then we find out, no, you signed something, you settled, you're done. We can't help you. So keep it in mind, no future in accepting any kind of money from the insurance company very early on. It makes no sense whatsoever. You probably don't even know, maybe from past medical treatment, what your medical bills are going to be. So, again, time is on your side. You have plenty of time to let this unfold. The other thing is, assuming the adjuster is a neutral party. So many times I hear people saying the adjuster is really nice, told me, hey, go get treatment where you want to, whatever, right? Everything seems great. And then when it comes time to settle, oh, Mr. Adjuster just turned not so nice because now they're pointing out all kinds of problems and they're wanting to make a lowball offer. And you were just led down that line of thinking that, hey, I'm on your side, we're going to take care of you, and then not so much. So keep it in mind, the insurance adjuster works for the insurance company. Who do you think their loyalty is with? The insurance company. So just remember, they are not on your team. They are the insurance company's player. And as I've said before, these insurance companies, they are for-profit businesses. They're there to make money, and they don't make money by paying fairly on claims. All right, moving along, days 11 through 20. We need to talk about medical treatment and consistency. So, why gaps kill good cases? Listen, if your doctor, whatever provider, is giving you a plan of treatment and you don't abide by that plan, guess what? That's not good. If you're missing appointments, if you're delaying follow ups, if you're switching providers without explanation, things like this, if you report that you're not taking the medication that they've told you should be taking, none of that is going to help you because you can look at it commonsensically, right? If you're hurting, you're in pain, you're trying to get better, then why aren't you doing what medical professionals are telling you to do to get better? So sometimes there's legitimate reasons. Maybe medicine they gave you is knocking you out. You can't go to work. It just makes you feel horrible. You're having a bad reaction, something like that. If they put you on a schedule of physical therapy, you need to be making those physical therapy appointments. And if they say, I want to see you back in 2 weeks, you better be back in 2 weeks. And again, if you have a serious injury, you need to be tending to it properly and not allowing gaps in treatment, non-compliance with treatment protocols that have been given to you. Those are great arguments for insurance companies to say, it wasn't that bad, you didn't care that much, and now you just want money out of this. So keep that in mind. But the other thing to also think about is how medical records are really read. So in medical records, there's usually pain scales, right? Providers are going to ask you to rate your pain. It's usually on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, 1 being not much. And that's always important. That's always something insurance adjusters bring up. The other thing is complaints. So your complaints need to stay consistent because if they change, look different, again, there's something that just doesn't match up. Insurance companies are going to use that against you. And what doctors don't write in their records can be just as important as what they do. And so that's why you want to make sure you're telling the doctors everything you can so that it gets in the record. Because again, insurance companies, they're going to find the missing information and they're going to use that against you. Now, work and wage loss issues, right? This usually comes up again in this time period of 11 to 20 days because at this point, maybe the full effect of the injuries are setting in and you've been missing work. And you got to keep these things in mind. Undocumented time off doesn't count, right? You need to make sure that number one, if you're in a situation that your injuries are preventing you from working, you need to ask your medical doctor for some type of a written restriction, right? Saying this person shouldn't be working because of this or that. And that documentation is always very helpful because insurance companies always want to know, well, were they taken off work by a doctor? Because if they're like, I just didn't go to work for 2 weeks because I was in a lot of pain, I was miserable, whatever. And that's all probably true, but you really want to get a doctor putting you off work because then the insurance company, again, they can check that box. Okay, there was a doctor signing off on it. And so I just can't stress enough the importance of written restrictions from a medical provider. And also, again, if you're trying to push through pain and you're trying to get to work, it can be used against you. And I fully understand if you don't have paid time off or sick pay or whatever at your job, and this is going to create a huge problem in your financial life. Obviously, some decisions have to be made because, again, we can make the lost wage claim, but it's going to be down the road when your treatment's done, everything's done. We'll be working for that settlement. But insurance companies, like auto insurance companies, they don't pay bill by bill on medical and they don't pay lost wages every week. This is different than work comp. So everything comes in a global lump sum settlement somewhere at the end. So again, decisions have to be made. Hopefully you have sick time, paid time off that you can utilize to try to help you recover. Because I know that can be a huge financial burden and just another added layer of the pain and suffering that you're going through because of this accident. But insurance companies don't argue that you weren't hurt. They argue the records don't support it. So keep that in mind, right? They won't ever tell me, hey, I don't think your client was hurt. They'll just say, from what I'm seeing, their pain was a 2 out of 10. They missed a few physical therapy appointments. They didn't miss any time from work. So we don't really value it that high. So keep that in mind. All right, days 21 through 30. Now we're getting a couple, 3 weeks past the accident. What are some things to think about? Surveillance, social media, and fatigue. Surveillance is real. What do I mean by that? Insurance companies hiring an investigator to try to catch you on video doing stuff that you've been telling them you can't do. And a lot of times that begins once treatment stabilizes. And again, depending on the severity of what you're claiming and the limitations that you're talking about with them, they very well, it doesn't cost them that much money to send somebody out to try to get you, so to speak. And again, what do you come? And again, what do we see? We might get some short clip of they did 5 hours of surveillance and we've got a 5 minute clip where you're doing this or that and they're wanting to use that. Meanwhile, they have all this other video footage that, again, they don't have any obligation outside of a lawsuit to produce to us, but they're going to surely produce the video that helps them. So just keep it in mind. You could be under video surveillance if you're making an insurance claim. And one good day, one good moment can overshadow weeks of pain. So if you're out in the public eye, just be careful. The other thing goes with social media, there pitfalls, right? Old post resurfacing, friends tagging you without your consent, comments taken out of context. If you're in an accident, you better make sure your social media is buttoned down, that nobody outside, whoever you want to see, sees it. And you might dial it down even more than that. Don't post anything about the accident. Don't post anything about activities you may or may not be doing. And you need to check what your history looks like as well. Again, very easy for insurance companies to go right to your social media and try to capture whatever they can to use against you later. So take a look at it, get it buttoned down. And emotional and mental fatigue. People get tired of going to medical appointments. They may get pressure from their family, their work, their finances, and they just get into a point where they just have the desire to be done with this. And insurance companies count on you getting worn down, but you have to stay the course. You have to make sure you're getting the treatment you need, that you're working in the best way that you can. If you've got to go to work, otherwise, if you've got that sick time, that paid time off, an accident, people just don't realize what a disruption in every aspect of your life an accident presents until they've been there. Just for example, just the very initial dealing with the property damage. So here you've got a wrecked car, you're down a car, you're trying to figure out, how do I get transportation, right? Replacement. Where do I need to get this car looked at so that the insurance company can figure out what they're doing with it, all that kind of stuff. You're having to deal with phone calls with insurance companies, with body collision centers, whatever it is. And then there may be little issues that arise with how the property damage is being handled. Just that alone can wear a person out. And so then you add on being injured and having to deal with all of that. This can be a very heavy emotional time. It can definitely weigh on a person. And you've got to make sure that you are sticking the course to get better. You're getting legal help if you need it. And I always recommend you at least make the call. It's a free call. Take some of that work and worry off of your plate and get help. And another thing, we see PTSD come out of a lot of accidents. And if you're struggling with anxiety after an accident, something like that, make sure you're asking your medical doctor about counseling, what options are out there. Because again, this can be a very trying event, whether it's a really serious accident or even less serious. It all takes a toll. All right. So let's talk about when legal help changes the trajectory of your claim. So when is it that you should be thinking, I need maybe to have a lawyer involved? Serious or permanent injury, no question. If there's a commercial vehicle or there's employers involved, things like that, business policies, if you're hit by a big truck or something like that, the deck is stacked against you. You need a personal injury lawyer that's been there and done that to make sure all the boxes are checked. Because I guarantee you that company, they've been on it since day one. A lot of times commercial vehicles, they've got people on the ground at the accident scene, depending on the severity. There can be confusing coverage issues. And if there are, as far as insurance coverage, you need to consult with a lawyer. And if you're getting delays, denials, lowball offers, too good to be true offers, you need to run it by a lawyer. Because again, you cannot trust that insurance company has your best interest at heart. And what do lawyers like myself do early? We control communications, we preserve evidence, we coordinate medical narrative, and we protect clients from irreversible mistakes. And calling a lawyer doesn't mean you're going to be filing a lawsuit. There's a whole lot of time span between getting a lawyer and your insurance claim and the potential of a lawsuit happening. So it's not an automatic. Early advice often prevents problems. Again, imagine everything I've just said in this podcast. I've told somebody that called me a day or two after an accident. Now they're prepared. So that's what you're looking for, right? Is that advice to help you avoid big mistakes. And again, waiting almost never helps. People get it in their head, well, I can probably handle this on my own. And no, you can't. I mean, you can, but you're not going to get full and fair compensation. That's period. That's the end of the story. Because only a personal injury lawyer that knows every way to make sure every element of your claim is fully supported, knows the value of a claim like yours, that's the only one that's going to get full value for you. All right, so here we go. Quick recap, plain English. Days 1 through 3, get checked, document everything. Days 4 through 10, be careful who you talk to. Days 11 through 20, stay consistent and follow through. And days 21 through 30, don't sabotage yourself out of fatigue. You don't need to know the law, you just need to avoid the traps. So, if you have a serious injury claim and you're not sure what to do, reach out to us. We're always here. It's a free call. We're happy to give you guidance and see how we can help. And again, if you missed the New Year's episode where we talk about the top 5 things you should be doing to prepare yourself just in the event, not to be paranoid, just to be prepared, then click here, watch the next video. And until next time, be safe and be well.